Is the Bitcoin price about to crash? In this video, guys, we're going to dive into the technical analysis on Bitcoin to see exactly what is likely to happen next here with BTC. As we get into this video, if you find it useful and informative, hit that like button. I really do appreciate that. If you happen to be new to the channel, then why not go ahead and subscribe, tap that bell, select all notifications, and in doing so, then you will be kept up to date with everything that we do here at Cheeky Crypto. Right, with all that out of the way, let's actually dive into some technical analysis on Bitcoin and talk about what other influencers and analysts, if you want to call them that, are talking about when it comes to Bitcoin's price. And we're going to go through what I think is actually more probable. Okay, so here we obviously have the weekly chart. This is Bitcoin to the USD. And we are using a Bitstamp because this gives us the most amount of information. Now, if you're familiar with the channel, you've probably seen this a few dozen times already. This is really breaking down everything that's been going on with Bitcoin, pretty much from 2013 through to the 2017 run, and obviously where we are today, right? And if we just come back to the 2013 run, obviously this is where we are looking very similar, okay? Not exactly the same as 2013, but very, very similar. Okay, so basically we had a good build up to at the beginning of the bull run, right? Good kind of peak that was had here. That happened, on the 8th of April 2013. Then there was this pullback, okay, that everyone thought was that was it. The bull run's over, right? A 315-day bull run. A really short, ridiculously short bull run. Everyone thought that was the end of that, and price had crashed. Everyone was panicking, selling, etc. And then obviously we started to see that second peak rise. Okay, and this one actually peaked up a latter part of November 2013. Okay, so we go from April high, and then we set another high, a two-end peak, if you will, a few months later. And that basically made that the bull run a 546-day run with a 231-day period between the two peaks. Okay, so peak 1, 315 days, and then peak 2 was 231 days later. Total bull run, 546 days. Then obviously we started to see the pullback, and we touched on the Gaussian channel. The Gaussian channel, guys, is basically a good way of using moving averages to see whether or not you're going into a bull run or a bear market, and actually gives you some pretty good, interesting buy areas when it comes to the valuation of BTC. So here we can see that we're slipping down in towards our Gaussian channel, riding the top of the Gaussian channel, and then falling in, going underneath it, indicated that the value has dropped significantly by the Gaussian channel going red. And then obviously here you can start to see a new bull run merging, right? So we bottom out the bull run, and then we start to push back through the Gaussian channel, ride the Gaussian channel, and a new bull run starts. Okay, so then obviously that goes into the 2017-2018 bull run, right? This time there wasn't a twin peak that you saw in 2013. Instead, it was a single peak run just at the top here. The total bull run lasted 714 days, an extra couple of hundred days on what happened previously in the 2013 run. Okay, so pretty good. But then obviously you can see from peak to peak, a total period of 1,470 days. Okay, and again, we can obviously take a look from peak to the end of the bear market, or the bottom of the bear market was a 413-day run. Okay, so now obviously we're breaking down the time periods a little bit. We can see obviously first big bull run that has happened here. We had two peaks. The whole thing lasted 546 days, and obviously there's 200 days between the peaks. Then obviously the second bull run we have a 714-day run total. Peak to peak, we have a 1,470-day period, and the bear market basically effectively lasts 413 days. Okay, so interesting kind of time periods that we can then start to analyze. Now, what happens if we go from peak to peak with a 1,470-day run? Well, that would basically put the bull run of 2021 ending on the 20th of December. So again, we have a rough kind of timeline to kind of be thinking about. But what else has gone on? Well, we've had a 364-day bear market. But because of the pandemic, things are actually delayed, and actually delayed the start of the bull run. In theory, we actually should have started the bull run back in 2019, only basically the pandemic actually brought us back below the Gaussian channel, which means actually we didn't start the bull run until basically July of 2020. That's where things really started to heat up nicely. But for the argument's sake of the impulse waves, it did start in March of 2020. Okay, so from a time period and making sure that we have consistency across these different bull runs, I am taking the 2021 bull run from the point that we actually started to ride the top of the Gaussian channel. That would be July 2020, or 2020 for this particular bull run. And in 2017, that time period was actually December of 2015. And obviously, for 2013, basically it was May 2012. Okay, so we are keeping the consistent time periods so we don't overlap anything, even though we did have this weird moment when it came to the pandemic and Bitcoin's bull run actually starting and then getting delayed and pulling back down before actually triggering a big run to the upside. Now, what does this actually mean? Well, it means that if the bull run does end in 1,470 days from peak to peak, then that would make the bull run 518 days, which is a little bit shorter than the 2013 run. So we could be a little bit longer than that. But again, in a twin peak scenario, that would be a pretty interesting kind of run to be had. Now, peak to peak on the 1,470-day kind of theory would actually put that a 245-day period between when we actually peak with the 65k Bitcoin to where the second and actual peak of the bull run would actually come in on the 20th of December. Okay, so again, speculation here as to whether that's going to be the case, but it's interesting nonetheless. And again, if we actually were to say the bull run's over, we went bear, that's it, it's all done, as per everyone's narrative back in May. Okay, bearing in mind what everyone was talking about, we're in a bear market now. Not on this channel, mind. This channel we've been very bullish from the word go, just because the data doesn't support a bear market. And with that being said, that would have made, if we were going into a bear market, a 266-day bull run, which would have been the smallest to shortest bull run in history. It would have just been laughable at that point. So obviously it's not a bear market. We haven't gone into a bear market, and ultimately we are looking at this data. I mean, it's actually looking pretty good just from a specifically from a time period perspective. But we can go a little bit deeper. We have the Gaussian channel. The Gaussian channel is being ridden nicely as we retesting this upper bound and continuing that growth to the upside. This is again something that was actually tested right here back in 2013, where we basically were coming very close to the top of the Gaussian channel before peaking it out again. Obviously, in 2018, when we actually had the initial peak, we came down, we tested it, but we fell in pretty quickly afterwards. Now, we haven't had that. We've wicked into the Gaussian channel, but we haven't closed inside the Gaussian channel. So that's looking pretty good. Now, again, we go a little bit further. We can obviously take a look at the price appreciation from a percentage point of view from the 2013 bull run. We actually achieved 24,500% in gains. Take a look at 2017. Bitcoin rose up 5,400% in gains. And right now, if we were to actually call this the bull run over, it would only be 1,600% in gains. Now, obviously, these percentage yields are really small in comparison to many other cryptocurrencies, but that's Bitcoin for you. It is considered a safer bet if you want to call it gambling and things like that, but ultimately you are going to be expected to see lower returns with things like Bitcoin and Ethereum than you are going to find with other altcoins that have good strong utility that maybe haven't had significant runs just yet. Overall, everything's looking pretty good from the weekly perspective here for Bitcoin. Everything's looking pretty much on track. So do we actually see Bitcoin falling back lower than $30,000? You've got to bear in mind this is the same narrative that's been spun over and over again, where people want to short Bitcoin and recoup some of their losses, specifically when they short Bitcoin with leverage, and they're going to get wrecked if they continue this kind of attitude. Ultimately, I don't see a big pullback to that degree. A correction is definitely going to be due, mind, but do I see us actually pulling back to those kind of levels? I'm not sure. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I'm not confident, and I don't think it's very probable either. But what we're going to do is we're going to jump down into some other charts here for Bitcoin, and we're going to take a look and see exactly what is happening according to my theory. Okay, so obviously we break down all that time period. We've broken down all the percentage yields. We understand that the bull run couldn't possibly be over, and we are expecting a second peak just based on time periods alone and percentage gains that have been made, right? But when we actually come down into the Bitcoin chart, let me turn that Gaussian channel off because that might just distract a little bit. And what we're going to do is we're going to just expand this up. And a lot of people know, if you're following the channel, that we are obviously following these 5 impulse waves, okay? 5 impulse waves to the upside. Now, these did technically start back in March of 2020. Of course, you could also argue that actually we're in an extended run, right? And this here could be your wave 1, that could be wave 2, we could have wave 3, wave 4, wave 5, right? That's also something that's very possible. And not something that I want to discount either. That would basically allow for an extended bull run. But again, that would be be outside of those time periods that we've been talking about. And the probability of this would be incredibly low, in my opinion. Not impossible, but the probability just isn't quite there. I think ultimately the bull run would be peaking towards the end of this year, and I cannot really see it overextending. So it's important that we obviously, prepare ourselves for a potential bear market. But if the data supports a good run to the upside at a later stage, I will be supporting that because I'm data-led, not biased or in any way, shape, or form. I do hold Bitcoin mind, but it's not a significant amount. It's not really going to be something that actually makes a huge impact on my portfolio personally. There's other projects that have gained 50,000% in gains. Bitcoin isn't going to do that. It's not going to make you a millionaire if you're a regular retail investor. With that being said, though, some of those altcoins are going to make you significantly more money than Bitcoin will. Okay, obviously they are classed higher risk if you don't do your research, of course. So let's take a look. Right, we have these 5 impulse waves. Moving to the upside, and we obviously have had that 1,600% gains from March lows down here, March 2020, through to those highs that were achieved up in April of 2021. 1,600% is tiny. It's a good return for Bitcoin. It's good to look at those dollar values, right? You move up from the low areas down here of is that $3,000 all the way up to the $60,000. It sounds impressive, right? But 1,600% does not sound impressive when you have things like VeChain moving 18,000, Harmony One moving 18,000, Cardano moving 14,000, Matic moving 52,000, Anchor moving 34,000. Those are what make your portfolio massive, not Bitcoin, okay? Not unless you're investing millions of dollars into Bitcoin are you actually going to really see significant gains. That's one of the reasons I don't make huge investments with Bitcoin. I have it because I want some exposure to it, but I'm not going to be putting a large portion of my portfolio into it. So obviously, a pretty interesting kind of moves. Now, we had that pullback here. This apparently is where you're going bear market, according to many influencers in the space. And of course, that's not what is going on. Instead, we can actually go down into a little bit of detail here and see exactly what is going on. So if we actually come down into our daily view and we actually take a look at this, obviously, we're following the Wyckoff distribution, or we're starting to follow a Wyckoff accumulation, but that got diverted. But what's actually going on here? Well, we have some interesting moves, right? You can argue that there is an ABC correction to the downside here. Okay, and we'll go grab hold of my ABC correction. Okay, so we go A, we go B, and then we go C. Okay, we do have that as a potential play. I know some other people in the space are also referring to this as a correction of those impulse waves. So again, we do have the impulse waves, those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 waves that we had to the upside. We do have people actually saying there's a 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 impulse waves to the downside, followed by an ABC to the upside. Okay, so bear with me. So basically we have an A, we have a B, and then we have a C. And then people are also then claiming that we should start to see 5 impulse waves to the downside. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? And taking us all the way back down to these lower areas. Now, sure, it's possible. Do I think it's probable? No, I don't. And the reason for this is we have to ignore several things on this daily chart to first of all allow that to occur. Got to bear in mind, we're not on the weekly, so we shouldn't be skipping out too much data points or too many data points whilst we try to come up with these analysis. Now, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 impulse waves to the downside, that could work. I could get that, but it would mean that this 5th wave would be incredibly short, and it's usually it's quite unusual for that 5th wave. Okay, it wouldn't normally be that short. Okay, so I think it's a bit of a push. It's possible, but it's a bit of a push. Instead, I do think that we are actually more likely to have this ABC correction here, right? This A, B, and C. I think that's more probable, followed by potentially, yeah, that's right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Probably maybe as possibly an A, B, C, D, E here, and pulling us down to the low areas here. But I think ultimately what's actually going on when we get down to this side is we actually start 5 impulse waves. We have 1, 2, 3. Actually, it's not even from there. Bear with me. It's like here. We have 1, 2, push up to 3. We come down to 4. We go up to 5. And then what we look for here is then that ABC. So we'll then be looking for an ABC correction before potentially then starting up with an additional 1, 2, 3, I actually draw this up there. Let me just move those up. 1, 2, 4. Obviously 4 dropping down, and then 5 pushing up, right? And I think this is actually more probable than us actually thinking that we are going down to those newer low areas. Now, it's very possible that we can, of course. And of course, the other things that's possible on here would be that we'd move into more triangles, right? Elliott theory triangles, and we actually start to think about that from a different perspective. But again, those are going to be more difficult to actually draw out here. I don't think we've got huge data points, but let's see if this will play out. Come in and actually take a look at some of these, right? We could say there's an A, B, C, D, E, and then a huge break to the upside later, and in which case a pullback to high 30s or mid 30s is possible, but dropping down lower and going down to about 28K again is something I think is very, very unlikely in my opinion. Overall, Bitcoin's looking pretty good, and if we actually take a look at this from a slightly different perspective as well, where do we think Bitcoin is likely to go overall? And for that, we can of course take the fib-based trend-based fib extensions, okay? And we take this from our impulsive wave 3, and we'll take the correction wave 4 into consideration, right? So we take our bottom of wave 2 here and the beginning of wave 3, and we go up to the top of wave 3, where we find that 65K area, and then we pull down to those lows that we achieved in that correction wave 4 back in June. Where does this actually show us moving? Well, it shows Bitcoin moving up quite progressively to the upside overall, right? And actually, this allows us then to think, where are our rejection points likely to be on this area? Okay, so obviously this would be pushing up to about 76K, then 89, then 127, 151, 188, 250, 287. Now, ultimately, I don't think there's going to be a huge spike so much higher than about 188. But it'd be interesting to see how that plays out. But ultimately, when we actually start to take into consideration the moves that we've had so far with Bitcoin, the probability is actually more likely to move up than it is to move down. But we should be expecting those ABC corrections because nothing moves in straight lines. Right now, we're on the cusp of a pretty good area for Bitcoin. And if it holds this area well, we could get a weekly close candle above the 786 based on the fib from between 3 and wave 4. And again, that would be pretty bullish to allow us to continue that growth to the upside overall. Now, it's also important to note that Plan B did successfully predict the lows of September for Bitcoin, and he has now successfully predicted the highs of October. Okay, he said 63K for October. I said 67K for October, and ultimately he has been right, and he predicted those well in advance, right? He's given us some approximate levels for Bitcoin to be hitting, and he has nailed 2 out of the 4 so far. His expectations of where Bitcoin is likely to go in November and December are very interesting. So do pay attention to those, because ultimately we're still following everything that is going on in this space quite actively, and I think ultimately Bitcoin is likely to continue the growth to the upside. I don't think we are likely to see a huge correction now. I think we are going to see corrections, potentially bringing us down to some additional key points, but I don't think we are likely to see huge amounts of pullback to occur. And as we look at this in detail, you know, we have those good kind of impulse waves that have kind of been building out here. And again, we can look at this on a much bigger scale, so we don't have to worry about all those little waves. But 1, 2, potentially pushing up to 3, which might come up into new all-time highs, pulling back for wave 4, which would be a significant pullback, and then pushing up into wave 5 in a nice strong way. Okay, so overall everything's looking pretty good, and obviously there's going to be waves within waves, and you can get yourselves lost until the cows come home, but ultimately things are looking bullish, not bearish. And again, the other thing that we also have to acknowledge is that cup and handle pattern as well. Something else that's been going on here that it does not support the pullback that we are seeing or being spoken of, right, where people are expecting Bitcoin to pull back significantly. This is not something that the cup and handle pattern would allow for either, because again, here's your cup, we come across and we actually find that handle, which would be, if I actually draw this up, it actually broke that neckline here anyway. So we have the cup, we have the handle, and then that's actually pushing us up significantly towards that 67K target, which is how I actually got to that 67K target just up here. Okay, so huge cup, huge handle, pushing up to 67k. This narrative doesn't allow for a huge pull to the downside, okay? This is actually a bullish signal. And again, you can take a look at several other key areas, such as potentially an inverse head and shoulder pattern. Again, that's a bullish signal that takes it to the next level. Okay, none of these things are looking to pull us down. But, you know, we don't move up in straight lines. We do need to see a correction of an ABC before we can continue those impulse waves to the upside. And if we are ever in doubt, it's important that we actually do zoom out and we actually pay attention to what is going on with everything in Bitcoin across the years, not just taking into consideration just this one entire bull run, but taking into consideration all of them. Taking a look at understanding those Gaussian channels, taking a look at the time periods between peaks to peaks, peaks for the bull run, peaks for the bear market, the percentage yields, all of it. Take it all into consideration. Pair that up with the data of advice.io. Take a look at the underlying data and the underlying value of the Bitcoin, as indicated by this artificial intelligence and machine learning. Does this tell you that we're expecting a pullback? We have a fear and greed index that's pulled down. We have an overall rating that's pulled down because of that fear and greed index. Fear has entered the market, but it's still neutral at B1, from greedy to neutral. We have Sharpe ratio at an A2 rating. Again, this is indicating to us that the risks do not outweigh the rewards, and that the rewards outweigh the risks, and actually exposure to Bitcoin might be a good idea. We come on down, we have moving averages up at an A2 rating. We have the profitability at an A1 rating. There are some liquidity-based problems at a C2 rating, and the peak end value demand is pretty neutral at B2. Overall, there's nothing wrong with the underlying data as driven out from advice.io and their artificial intelligence. Ultimately, the sentiment in the market right now is a little bit more neutral than it was greedy previously, but again, this is driven from all this fun and nonsense that you're hearing in the space. Expecting 20k Bitcoin. I'm still waiting. I haven't seen it. When is 20k Bitcoin going to occur? It's probably going to occur in a bear market if it's going to occur at all. And again, the other thing that's important to acknowledge, guys, is if we are to expect a significant pullback to that kind of degree, where we pull down to 28k, it would put us well below the Gaussian channel and would end the bull run. Okay, so another reason I would not believe that we are going to be dropping down to those kind of levels. Guys, I'm going to leave the video there, but if you have found this video useful and informative, hit that like button. I really do appreciate that. If you happen to be new to the channel, then why not go ahead and subscribe? Tap that bell, select all notifications, and in doing so, you will be kept up to date with absolutely everything that we do here at Cheeky Crypto. With this said, done, and out of the way, I hope everyone has a fantastic day, and I'll catch you all in the next one.